God, I hate this guy. He's so fucking arrogant. Well, what exactly do you mean by arrogance? Personally, when I think about arrogance, I think about the omission of the reality that you can be wrong, believing that you're right without merit, or that you're just superior because. But too often I think people aren't noticing the nuanced difference between arrogantly assuming that you can't be wrong and being confident in the idea that you may be right. Well, how can you assume that you're right? I don't necessarily. I just find it hard to operate from the opposite assumption. Too often when people accuse others of arrogance, especially here on YouTube, it translates to, we don't like what you said, how you said it, or especially the fact that you don't give a fuck about either of those. Like, these are things I notice especially with people like Dusty Smith, Cult of Dusty here on YouTube, where he'll give some passionate commentary on something with a whole bunch of swearing and yell about something, and people will assume that he's arrogant because of his delivery, as opposed to whether or not he is actually willing to consider whether or not he may be wrong. It's just like what I see all the time with people saying, you know, like, I love your videos, they're so random, because the person in the video is acting high and stupid, and somehow that translates to randomness, as opposed to actually being random. The term is being kind of hijacked in the same way, where arrogance now does not mean that you actually aren't willing to change your opinion, or that you are staunch in the idea that you are right about something, and omit the possibility that you could be wrong, but that you have such passionate delivery that you must be staunch in that opinion and you would never consider ever changing it. Like when I made my video about how college is a scam, several people could have accused me of being arrogant, and they didn't, but if they had, it certainly wouldn't have been because I wasn't willing to change my opinion, because I did. And so if someone had accused me of that, it'd be entirely because I yelled and engaged in too much hyperbole or something to that effect. It'd have nothing to do with the fact that I wasn't willing to change my opinion, because I did. I realized that the way that I expressed myself was simply too hyperbolic, that I didn't give enough credit to how much college does provide for you so far as resources and teachers, and how that does lend you to being able to get a more professional career, and that the comments I was making about being able to learn things in a public library simply amounted to how, yes, you can be autodidactic and you can learn things on your own to a degree to which you can actually conversate with people, even if they are professionals in a field. You can actually conversate with them regularly, regardless of what the subject is really. You may not know particulars about what goes into it, such as with, say, quantum physics. You might not know the specific math that goes into it, but you'd still be able to have a coherent conversation with someone who had a professional, formal education in the subject, even though you are autodidactic, even though you learned the things on your own just by looking stuff up. I mean, basically my entire point was that college costs too much for what it is. Can that really be argued? Especially with the fact that tuition costs are going up like, what, 8% per year for no reason? And so if I was called out for being arrogant in that video, it wouldn't be because I was arrogant. Yet at the same time, it would be so ironic that the people who would accuse me of arrogance are hypocritically being arrogant to assume that I'm being arrogant, when in fact I am fully willing to change my opinion. And again, this is something I just see far too often, of people accusing others of arrogance, when in fact what they are doing is arrogantly assuming that the person meant what they did in the way that they think they did, because apparently they know this person personally, and better than that person knows themselves, enough to be able to judge them as being arrogant, and of course, that's not arrogance on your part. If it's arrogant to give commentary on these things in that kind of way, then obviously, your commentary should be judged in the same kind of way. Am I wrong? And so, it's just something that I see far too fucking often, is people seeing arrogance in place of passion. To arrogantly assume that regardless of whether or not one is willing to change their opinion, the fact that they spoke passionately with a vehement opinion about whatever topic, who's being arrogant here? The person who is giving an opinion that they are fully willing to change on a dime at the acquisition of new data? or the person who's arrogantly assuming that someone is arrogant when they aren't even using the term properly, and based on unfounded assumptions, based on that tiny window that they get into who this person is, which is that short video, which is no kind of window into how someone actually acts day to day, every second of their lives. Like, for some reason, my video about why I left the military on my old VarmitCoyote channel, it's gotten a whole bunch of publicity recently. I guess it must have been posted on a message board somewhere or something, because it's gone where it was at, like, I don't even know how many, just 1,000 views or so, to like 4,000 views in just the past few weeks. And people keep on commenting on there saying that I'm being a douche, and that I sound like I think I'm always right about stuff, and that I sound like I'm saying that everybody in the military is stupid, and that I'm always right, and all these different things that I never fucking said. It's like people see implications that aren't really there, and then assume that they are right, that those implications actually are there. I think that arrogance is something that is widespread to a degree, that people don't have enough humility concerning whether or not they can be wrong. And of course, that plays into things like religion and whatnot that actually instill in people an idea that they can't be wrong, or that when they are wrong, they can't admit it, they can't admit they don't know, things of that nature. And it's just unfortunate. It's something that's very widespread in our society, and again, it's a poor evolution of the language, and it's very telling about the quality of the average person out there, and I just pity people like that who would actually be so arrogant as to assume that because they've seen 2 minutes of a person on YouTube, that they then have license to judge them as a person. That's a huge leap. And people seem way too willing to make it. But that's just me. Long days and pleasant nights.